When you touch your patient, there is something in that touch. The fingers have memory. The fingers transmit something. That's why touch is so important. And today's world, you go to see your family doctor, he or she, they sit behind their desk and they write on a piece of paper. They don't touch you. They don't do a full physical exam. And it's very important because touch is actually leads to intuition. I feel sometimes I examine my patient and I feel I'm totally puzzled. I don't know what's wrong. I've gone back home and I'm sleeping. I wake up at 4 in the morning and literally I know what is wrong just because I've touched.
That's integrative veterinarian and totally beautiful soul, Dr. Radica Raj. This week's guest on episode 72 of the Unplug Podcast. Hi there, and welcome to another heart-expanding week of the Unplug Podcast, where we unplug from status quo and shift the paradigm from head to heart by co-creating a more passionate, compassionate, loving, and interconnected world. And you've arrived at the place to hear powerful conversations with the courageous truth seekers of today's extremely rapidly changing world. And my name is Deb Ozarko, warrior of truth, Status Quo Crusher, and passionate lover of life, here to welcome you to your almost weekly dose of authentic expression, truth, critical thought, provoking words, and open-hearted inspiration from my paradigm-busting headquarters in wildfire-stricken coastal British Columbia, Canada. And with that, this is a really great place to segue into this week's podcast guest intro for a woman who shifted her thinking from head to heart, and as a result, she's embraced the true healer within. So this week I speak with Dr. Radica Raj, and she is another paradigm-shifting, status quo crushing, transformational change maker whose heart and voice I'm really grateful to bring to you today. And Radica's head-to-heart transformation involved a switch from the mainstream medical veterinary model of treating the body as diseased parts to a more expansive, holistic approach that treats the body as a whole. So when I say the body as a whole, I mean body, mind, and spirit. So I'm not just talking about the physicality, I'm talking about the energetic bodies as well. So where her head used to lead her to stress, burnout, and a deep sense of unease, Radica's heart now leads the way as she embraces the true healer, as I've already mentioned, the true healer within. And Radica's story is one that many of us can relate to. Disenchantment with mainstream culture leading to a search for something more that is in line with the truth in her soul. And she's found it, and she's living it. Radica left a very busy emergency clinic in Toronto to pursue a more expansive, integrative approach combining Western veterinary training with holistic veterinary medicine in the form of Chinese medicine, chiropractic, prolotherapy, PRP therapy, and so much more. That is a true healer, somebody who embraces it all. Radica now lives on Vancouver Island, and she's the owner of, ironically enough, the Phoenix Rising Veterinary Care Clinic. So remember the Phoenix Rising story I told earlier. There's a theme here. In today's episode, she shares her journey from practitioner to healer and inspires us to look outside the narrow confines of the box of Western medicine to something far more effective for true healing of mind, body, and spirit. Now, I have such great respect for Radica, and I'm really grateful to have her in my life for the full body health of our animals, as well as for the compassionate person she is with the people like myself who love the animals in their lives. So, I started off this podcast with a bleak reality, and that is the half bottle of oil that is still missing. That's the bleak reality. But we can fill it with the knowledge that there are many good people doing great things in this world. And Dr. Radica Raj is one of them. So enjoy today's show. Radica, I am so excited to have this conversation with you today and to be able to share it with my listeners around the world. You are creating a real movement on Vancouver Island that I am so excited about as somebody who thinks progressively, but also somebody who really loves my animals in a way that I want the best for them. And I know that there's so much more beyond what our culture tells us there is. So meaning Western medicine. And I know that applies to both ourselves as well as our animals. It's really, they're one and the same. And when we discovered that the clinic that we had gone to like 10 years ago in Courtenay had risen from the ashes, literally, Phoenix Rising, I was so excited. And when we met you with Jesse back in October, it was your excitement for this new direction that you're taking yourself is palpable. And of course, we've had this little mini pre-conversation beforehand, and I'm feeling all fired up because I can feel your passion. So I, just to give listeners a background and a foundation for who you are, I would love if you could just share your journey with us, how you got into veterinary medicine, where you were, and how it evolved into where you're heading today, where you already are and where you continue to go, and how you continue to grow and evolve with this integrative mindset that you've taken on, because this is something that the world really, really needs. And I know that it's something that's still emerging, but you're really bringing it into the forefront of consciousness. So I think that collectively you and I can bring it even more into the forefront of consciousness now with this platform that I've got that is reaching people around the globe. So yeah, if you could just start with your story, let's just start there and then we'll see where we go from there.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Deb. I mean, I feel really inspired by what you're saying. You're inspiring me even more. I just want to say that right off the bat. I started I grew up in India, and I started with James Herriot, of course, but like so many people. And when I was 5 or 6, I used to read his books, and I said, I am going to be a vet. And they thought every little girl says that, and my parents thought that I'll forget about it, but I never ever did. I worked towards it, got into vet school in India, and I still felt that there was something missing. I just had to reach out and do something more. It wasn't just about being a vet. And, I went to regular vet school like everybody else, did Western medicine, got into private practice. I came to Canada, got certified at the University of Guelph. And I continued. I went from being in general practice to doing emergency medicine. I opened my own emergency clinic with my business partner in outside of Toronto in Richmond Hill. And I still felt there was something more. There has to be something more than just this. It wasn't just about doing emergency medicine. It was just so much more that was unexplored. And, Western medicine has its fair share of frustrations, although it can be very rewarding too, especially when you practice emergency, because you're able to get out there and save so many lives. However, there was also this dead end that I reached in terms of, it couldn't do more than steroids for certain cases. And it was also cost prohibitive, Western medicine, and people would want to put down their dogs and cats, just because they couldn't afford the level of care. And that inspired me to go out there and seek more. And so I went to the Chi Institute in Florida and did the acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine course. And that led me to find Dr. Marlene Smith at the Tree of Life. And there really was no looking back once I moved from Toronto to Vancouver Island. And came and met Dr. Smith. It was just a whole new chapter open, because she is so passionate about Chinese medicine and alternative therapies and raw food. She talked a lot about diet and how important it is. I learned a lot from her. And thanks to her, she was standing behind me and inspired me, and that's when I felt, when Tree of Life closed down, that Phoenix Rising had to, it literally, like you said, it rose from the ashes of the Tree of Life, and a big part of that was Marlene backing me up. Yeah, and so here we are with Phoenix Rising veterinary care, and able to offer more and more and more services every day. We look and we find it's there, it's out there. We just have to keep looking.
Yeah, and you mentioned that Marlene. I know that she was. I guess she was working on a part-time basis when we were there with you in October, and I know that she was. I think that, anyways, she was retiring, but you've brought her into the Phoenix Rising Clinic now, and I guess she's going to be more of a consultant, working as a consultant with you.
Yeah, Marlene is going to be a consultant as long as she wants to and is able to for Phoenix Rising Veterinary Care, because this is what she does. I mean, this is her passion. And even if she is not able to come in physically and work, she's going to be consulting on a weekly basis with all my cases, and I'm going to have her input because she has this flair for combining Western medicine and Chinese medicine, which you need experience. She's done it for 25 years, and that experience is invaluable to be able to think bilingually, in terms of both different systems of medicine, and to be able to connect the dots between the two and find answers. And yeah, she's definitely a consultant for Phoenix Rising, and that's the understanding we have. Yeah.
And now, when you first met her, the Tree of Life, you said, was still operational, that clinic?
When I first met her, Tree of Life was operational, but she had retired. She has actually she's retired several times and come out of retirement. She's that passionate about it. When I came into Tree of Life, the very week I came, she did retire, but she and I hit it off right away, and outside of the clinic, I would consult her every weekend. I'd go over to her place and talk about all the cases that I had and take her advice. And because Tree of Life was then sold to somebody else, and when the new owner of Tree of Life felt she couldn't keep it going, she found it a little difficult, so she decided that she was going to close it down. And that's when Marlene asked me to step in and see if I wanted to open it, and I felt it was the right time and that I could do it with her backing me up. Like I said, I felt like I could do it. So it's been less than a year. We Phoenix Rising opened in July of 2014, July 29th to be precise, and it's less than a year now.
So now I'm curious, was that the impetus for the move from Toronto to Vancouver Island then? Was to pick up the pick up the ashes or resurrect the ashes?
No, not at all. I moved. I just saw the Tree of Life website. I saw Dr. Marlene Smith had written a blog on her web page. I saw her picture. I could sense her passion behind her words, and it was amazing. I woke up one morning, I was sitting in meditation, and the word Tree of Life kept coming to me, and I'm like, what on earth is Tree of Life? I know it's a movie by Brad Pitt with Brad Pitt in it. And then I looked it up, and there it was, this clinic. I had no idea it even existed prior to that. Just like that one morning. And then I picked up the phone and called at 8:30 in the morning and ended up here. I just told my husband, yeah, I came here for a week, and I went back. I told my husband, hey, we're moving, and he said, okay, when?
That actually gives me goosebumps. So that the Tree of Life came to you in meditation. That gives me goosebumps.
Yeah, that was pretty, I don't know what to say. I mean, it was just meant to be.
Yeah, if that's not a sign from the universe, I don't know what is. That's profound. Unbelievable. Well, I'm curious now. Let's go back to your time in Toronto. You were working at an emergency clinic, and I can imagine that must really take an emotional toll on you.
It did, primarily because it was also my own business, and running an emergency clinic is not the easiest thing when you're also working long hours. And yes, it was very emotionally exhausting. I think for me, a big part of that was also that it was still a business, and I don't think I have it in me to run a business for profit. I mean, it's not that I don't have a healthy respect for money, but it was hard for me to tell people I am able to save your dog's life, but it's going to cost you X amount of dollars, and if you don't have that money, I'm not able to give you that service. It was really hard to do that. It felt like, especially when people were so emotionally involved with their pets, and but then they didn't have the financial wherewithal, so to speak. That part of it was tremendously challenging for me. And the other part of it was that, with Western medicine not being able to do certain things, not able to reverse paralysis in a dog. Now I have acupuncture. I know that, a dog walks into the clinic, she's paralyzed, and I say, oh, don't worry, she'll be walking in a few weeks. I can see that now. And I didn't know that then, other than my steroids and anti-inflammatory for acute onset paralysis. I had nothing to offer, other than referral to a neurologist and surgery. And surgery is only a 50% success rate for dogs with acute disc herniations that become paralyzed. So, and sometimes multiple surgeries are needed. It's not always successful. So, yeah, so, given all these, I found it pretty, I was burned out. And so I sold out to my partner and decided I can't do this anymore, and that I needed to look into something different.
It's interesting that you bring that up about how there's all of these Western options, but they're very costly. And it seems like, at least, I grew up with the James Herriot mindset as well. And you're right. Like, I was one of those little girls who wanted to be a veterinarian until I realized that there was a lot of math and science involved. And I was like an English and art kind of a person. So it didn't really work for my right brain was engaged, but my left brain was a little bit sluggish and I just couldn't activate it. But, I get it, and for me, it was about getting into helping animals because I loved animals so much. But what I've noticed over the years is that, like modern medicine for humans, there's this, it seems to have become really commoditized, and really it's all based on capitalism now, whether it's modern medicine for humans or modern medicine for animals. And there's a heartlessness that has come with it. And I just, I don't feel comfortable going to doctors or vet clinics. I actively seek out practitioners with a more integrative mindset because I know that their heart is still in it. It hasn't been corrupted by that, the money mindset. And, I feel like that's really tragic. It's like, you mentioned that it was hard on you. And I totally get that. Having met you a few times now, you wear your heart on your sleeve. And I love that. I love that about you. I'm a like-minded person. So I feel when I'm in the presence of somebody who wears their heart on their sleeve, I can feel that. And I feel a connection, an immediate connection.
Exactly, and I sense that about you too, and I have this level of comfort with you because of that. You know what I mean? Because you are what you are, and I see that.
And yeah, and so are you, and that's so beautiful. And there's a feeling of safety that comes with that. Yeah. Now, if I walk into like a clinic around here on the coast, I don't feel safe. I feel guarded. I feel like, what are they going to tell me that I need that I know that I don't need? What are they going to tell me that I need that I know is just going to hurt my animals? There's always these questions, these guarded questions that go in, and that's not a way to run a business, but it's also not a way to, what's the word? It's not a way to inspire confidence in people. And I'm curious what you have to say about this shift. You're in it. You're in the medical profession. I am I'm a client. So I see it from a client perspective. you've been in it. It's made you feel uncomfortable. But I'm curious what you say, just like from like kind of like an overview perspective from a client and a practitioner perspective.
Yeah, from a client perspective, I mean, I agree with you. I'm guarded with the human doctors. In fact, I don't have a human doctor because I haven't found one that I feel safe with, and exactly like you say, will be able to think like me and advise a more natural, holistic approach to help heal the body, mind, and the spirit. And so from that point of view, I understand what you're saying as a client about, the average practitioner of veterinary medicine today. And at the same time, I look at it from their perspective. I'm trying to understand that we're all doing the best that we can with what we know. And if I'm sometimes frustrated that a dog has been on steroids for 9 years of its life with severe side effects showing, sometimes I do get frustrated. I think, why don't they look around them? There is more. Why don't they try to offer more? And then I calm myself down because I feel compassion for them too. Because then I have to understand they are doing what they think is best given the knowledge that they have. And this is what it takes to make this world. Everybody is different. If everybody were the same, then it's not going to be that much fun.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it is frustrating because sometimes I want to reach out and tell them, yes, I know that you can only offer so much, but instead of euthanizing your patient or telling your client to have the dog on steroids for the rest of his life, why don't you refer to somebody who's there, who does a little bit more, who explores other options, and give this dog a chance, right? And that level of frustration is there too. And I also find the other thing that veterinarians face is that they often feel that their profession is not as rewarding as human doctors are, that that people balk at spending money on their pets sometimes, and doctors or veterinarians are accused of being money grabbers and stuff like that. It's also our healthcare system, because we don't pay for healthcare for us. It becomes a little bit more difficult for people to understand that, yes, medicine is expensive, surgery is expensive. So I understand that that's some frustration that veterinarians go through too. All in all, I think everything has to be a balance. You know what I mean? It's like every service has to be appreciated by the client and by the doctor too, knowing the value of what they offer. And I think every patient also should be respected as an individual and not treated as a herd or a flock or a group. One size does not fit all, and that's what Western medicine tells us, that one size fits all.
Mm-hmm.
Here, you take the same antibiotic and I'll give it to 1,000 other dogs and just throw it at them hoping it'll work. No, it doesn't work that way. And that's one thing that Western medicine needs to learn, which they have not learned at all in all these hundreds of years that it's been in existence.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad that I asked that question, because it gives me I comprehend better now both sides of the coin. I can look at both sides of the coin from an empathic point of view, but speaking with somebody who understands both sides of the coin because she practices from, you're a client as far as your own healthcare is concerned, and you're a practitioner as far as animals care is concerned. That just gives me a broader perspective. So yeah, thank you for sharing that, what you said. But I'm curious about this wall of resistance that comes up now. And this is, again, I'm speaking from a client perspective, because there are a number of veterinarians that, since we've moved out here to BC, we're still searching for someone locally who we feel comfortable and safe with our animals with. And when we mention to them, when they start pushing the flea medications and the steroids and all of that stuff, we we instantly put the brakes on and say, no, we're not going to go that route. We think more integrative. And as soon as we say that, then there's a wall of resistance with them as well. Now, it's not like we're saying it in a really arrogant way, because that's not our style. Mm-hmm. But there seems to be a real, I guess using the word arrogance, there seems to be an arrogant attachment to the Western mindset, where there is this wall of resistance, where they're not willing to explore alternatives. And I'm wondering, now I know that integrative veterinary medicine is still, it seems weird in this day and age that it's still cutting edge, because it shouldn't be. As far as I'm concerned, it should be the norm. But hey, I'm already thinking way ahead of my time, I think.
Exactly.
And so sometimes I look at this paradigm that we're still predominantly trapped in, and I think, what? Really? We're still doing that? That makes no sense. But it's like you said, the modern medicine, for 100 years, it's just proven that the cookie cutter approach doesn't work. But this wall of resistance, since you're now, you've come from the Western mindset, then you were practicing, emergency, where you're really embedded in the Western mindset. And now you've taken a whole other, more expansive route. And I'm wondering how it's being received when you speak with other veterinarians about this path that you're on right now, how they're receiving this information, if that wall of resistance is on the practitioner side as well. So practitioner to practitioner rather than client to practitioner.
Yeah, initially it was very challenging, but I realized quickly that if I need them to see my point of view, I have to walk their walk and talk their talk. And that's where I started. I actually sent everybody a letter on the island, every clinic on the island a letter introducing myself, and I said how I am basically an emergency vet, but I also practice integrative medicine, and I explained that. And I'm proud to say that I'm an integrative practitioner, because, and I said, it totally makes sense when you consider that most of the medications that are used in Western medicine were originally from plant alkaloids. So you're prescribing something that's made in a lab, and I'm prescribing something that comes straight from a plant, and it's the same. I actually mentioned that in one paragraph, and nobody challenged me on that, by the way.
That's great.
And I also made it a point I continued speaking to them. Yes, even now I encounter walls now and then, but most of them are more open, because I organized rounds at my clinic and had them come in. Initially, there were just 2 people that came in, and then it became 3. And at the last meeting, every single vet in the Comox Valley showed up. And they were all eager and excited to present their cases, because they realized that when I say I do traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture, I'm not restricting myself to just that. That if I need to, if a dog requires antibiotics from a severe infection, yes, I do prescribe antibiotics. If I need to do emergency surgery on a dog that has its stomach twisted, yes, I do it. So they realized that I do both. And so initially they accepted me for my emergency medicine. And now when they see that I'm offering stuff like I do work with stem cells and stuff like that, so they feel safe now. They feel like they're not dealing with somebody. Their concept of an integrative or holistic practitioner was that I do magic or black magic, and it's also how clients say it. They say, "Oh, we went to her; it's a miracle. My dog's walking again," and it's also how people express it and describe what I do here. But they no longer think that I just do some magic here, and that I work with potions and charms and stuff like that. That they do know that there is a scientific side to me as well, and it has to be a blend of the left brain and the right brain, because medicine is an art. To be able to touch, palpate, and feel both with your fingers. All the senses come in when you're treating a patient. Every all your five senses. It is a multi-sensory art that we practice. And that's what I feel about it. And while I'm on that, I just want to tell you that there's this really good book, Deb, that you should read. It's by Victoria Sweet, Dr. Victoria Sweet, and it's called God's Hotel. And I recommend everybody that wants to understand what medicine is today and why it has become the way it is today should read that book. It was it was an eye-opener and very touching.
Thank you for that recommendation. Yeah, I'll get that. When I was speaking with Marlene, she recommended a book as well that was quite eye-opening, and I'm grateful for that. I always love book recommendations, so yeah, thanks. What you've done basically is you've shared your story with people so that they understand where you come from, and you've opened your heart and you've opened your clinic basically to allow people in so that they understand where you're coming from, which is such a beautiful way to do it, rather than saying, I know better than you, which is, I think, probably where for the way sometimes they react, it seems like that's what they're perceiving, is that, people are saying, no, this isn't the way I want to do things because I know something differently. And they don't want their knowledge challenged. Instead, they want inclusivity. It's like you said, we all want safety. We all want to feel safe. We don't want to feel threatened. We don't want to feel lesser than. And of course, when we do, that's when the walls come up. So
Right.
Yeah, by sharing your journey and inviting people in, they understand that you're just on a different path that has led to where you're at right now. And why not share this more expansive knowledge? And if they're open, then you're there to work with them.
Yeah, and I think for them it's also it's fear of the unknown. They feel safe where they are, like you said, and anything beyond that is unknown. And also people need validation, whether it's from the scientific community, the medical community. If there is no validation, then there is fear.
Yes. And that's, it's okay. Now I'm going to bring something else up because I know that you're vegan, which I think is very, very cool. I have to say, when we went to see you in October with Jesse, and we didn't know, it's not like we're actively seeking out practitioners who are vegan. We just want practitioners who do great work. But when we found out you were vegan, there was something about that gave me an even greater sense of peace and a feeling of safety, knowing that, you don't eat the animals that you work on. So, not that the vets around here eat dogs and cats, I don't think anyway, but anyway, it's that same thing with people when they hear of vegan too. It's the fear of the unknown. They've been indoctrinated into that cultural mindset that they're supposed to eat meat and dairy. I think we're all indoctrinated into, maybe not when you're growing up in India, but here in North America, I was not exempt from it either. And so what I have to remember is, now that I've been vegan for, 16 years now, I have to remember where I once was. And I think that that's key, really, is remembering where we once were, instead of coming from the pulpit and saying, this is the way, this is the only way, and say, you know what? I was once where you were, and I found a different path, and it really changed my life. And you know what? If you're open, let's talk. And if you're not, cool, that's fine. But I'm here if you ever do want to talk. And that makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree. And that's how I feel about being vegan, very strongly, that I feel like I just need to live my life and do things this way, and I don't need to speak about it unless people want to know about it, but they can just see the way I live, what I eat, and take it from there. And I used to be part of an animal rights movement 18 years ago when I first became vegan. And I didn't feel comfortable being so vocal about it, or I found that people were angry.
Mm-hmm.
And And for me, that goes against the whole veganism. I mean, I kind of am I'm a Martin Luther King and Gandhi fan, and for me, even violence in thought is bad, and so that's why I quickly opted out of groups like PETA, People for Ethical Treatment of Animals, and People for Animals, and all these animal rights movement. Quickly got out of those because I felt like there was some degree of violence in what they were propagating.
I totally agree with that. And I know for in my own evolutionary path, I was very involved with PETA at when I first swallowed the red pill, to use the Matrix analogy. And I was angry. I was really upset. I thought, why on earth was I lied to? Why did my parents lie to me? Why did culture lie to me? Why did my teachers and my friends, why did everybody lie? Why does everybody hide this information? Why do we perpetuate all of this cruelty? And so there was a lot of anger that came out, but below that was grief, and I believe that all of the superficial emotions that we have that are heightened, such as anger, feeling betrayed, below that is grief, because I was grieving who I didn't allow myself to be, by not knowing the truth. I wasn't able to really fully express who I truly am. And that's somebody who's loving and compassionate. So, I understand why those groups are out there, but it was a few years before I finally, I didn't get out as quickly as you did. So I was the anger, it really, really eats at the soul. And,
right.
And you're right. It is another form of violence. It's from the other side. But it's still violence, it's still blame and shame, and, it's separation. That's what I talk about. It's separation. It's not unity. It's not promoting
exactly
love and compassion and all of the things that we want to see in the world, as Gandhi says.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. It is separation.
Yeah. So anyway, so I brought that metaphor up, the vegan metaphor up, because it sounds like what you've done with the clinic is along the same lines. Is you invited them into your journey and have opened the doors to a more expansive way of thinking, which is so beautiful.
Thank you.
Now, I want to talk about this passion and this hunger that you have for learning more. Now that you've opened up your own worldview, you are traveling a lot. Like, I know you just came back from Kansas, right?
Yeah, I travel every month to Kansas to do the chiropractic course.
So you've been doing chiropractic, and now you're doing prolotherapy as well. And we brought Barney over, one of our cats over, and you did prolotherapy, and you did PRP therapy.
I did platelet-rich plasma. Yeah.
Maybe can you explain those different therapies? Now, I've had prolotherapy on myself, and it was really, really extremely helpful for knee problems and for plantar fasciitis when I was a runner. And so when I found out that you were doing it on animals, I was so excited because I didn't even know it existed. So if I didn't know it existed, and I'm one who's really always looking forward to all of these new modalities within, veterinary medicine, particularly because I live with a house full of animals, I'm sure there's a lot of other people who don't know anything about it. But maybe you can explain prolotherapy and PRP therapy and what the difference is, and then stem cells, because I know you've brought that up as well, because this is all really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of exciting things, cutting edge stuff happening, and it's still, being explored. And prolotherapy, stem cell therapy, and PRP are just a few of those things that are being explored right now, few modalities. Prolotherapy, believe it or not, was actually practiced as early as late 30s and early 40s in human medicine. So what it involves is injecting sterile solutions of dextrose mixed with homeopathic pain medication like Tromil, even lidocaine, which is a local anesthetic. So basically make a cocktail with this, and the doctor injects it into the tendons, ligaments, and joints. It's actually called regenerative medicine because what it does is it actually creates a local inflammation wherever there's inflammation, stem cells are and growth factors are attracted to that area, and they actually help regenerate and rebuild tissue. And they take away the dead tissue in that area, they clean it up, and then new tissue is actually formed. So they're using this to as a non-surgical treatment option for ligament tears, cruciate ligament tears that athletes usually have. They use it for muscle pain. They use it for joint pain. They use it to manage osteoarthritis. In dogs, they use it for hip dysplasia, elbow dysplasia. I mean, there's so many uses for it, and the best part is that I wouldn't say it does away with surgery. Sometimes surgery is necessary, but it is an option for people that do not want to put their pets through surgery, based on the age or based on the success rate, or post-op complications, whatever it is. So there is this option that exists, and the more people know about it, the better. Because I personally have seen so much post-op osteoarthritis with bone and joint surgeries, orthopedic surgeries, that after a while it's not even funny anymore because the patient is so painful for the rest of their life. There is no quality of life. And one of the reasons I like prolotherapy is I'm able to give my geriatric patients quality of life, along with acupuncture and laser. I can say come in for a treatment, say once a month or once in 6 months, however long it takes, and you have this dog that is able to move around way better, not groaning in pain every time he sits and gets up, and so it's definitely a pain management option, and it's an alternative to surgery in some cases for sure.
And it has a long-term effect too, doesn't it?
It has a long-term effect in the sense that some of my patients, I haven't had to repeat it for even it's over 6-8 months now, and I haven't had to repeat a treatment. What I really found amazing about prolotherapy was, yes, I found acupuncture for those really painful disc dogs with disc disease, herniated discs, screaming in pain. Acupuncture was helpful, and then I realized there were some cases where acupuncture was taking care of the pain temporarily, but wasn't quite fixing the pain. And I started doing prolotherapy on these dogs, injecting the solution into their vertebral column around the spine, and wow, it was like night and day. These dogs that couldn't even get up and move, that screamed if you touched them, they start playing, they start running around, and they have it's just amazing what the turnaround that happens. Prolotherapy led to another modality called platelet-rich plasma. I started exploring that for some dogs that needed more, and platelet-rich plasma is basically collecting the dog's own blood and separating out the plasma in a special centrifuge and injecting that small amount of plasma into the tendons, ligaments, joint spaces, muscles, wherever it's needed. And that's proved even more amazing because platelets actually are a source of stem cells. They also create stem cells in that area where you inject them, and these stem cells actually repair tissue. I have actually seen that, again, back dogs injected with platelet-rich plasma, within a week they're back to normal function. It has been really very, very rewarding.
You mentioned that you've used this for cruciate tears as well, and I wish that we had known about that all these years ago, because Jesse had 2 cruciate tears. Of course, it always works that way, right?
Yeah.
And you're right. It's such an invasive surgery. It's very serious surgery, and it's extremely expensive, but it's emotionally gut-wrenching too, because the healing process afterwards takes so long.
Yes, exactly. It takes a long time, and invariably one surgery is followed by another because they keep favoring the other leg, and at some point the other leg is damaged as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, can you explain what stem cells are?
Stem cells are basically, it's another modality where where doctors harvest these cells from fat or bone marrow. Initially, stem cells are harvested from bone marrow, which is a very invasive procedure. Now they're finding that fat is a good source of stem cells. So stem cells are the very basic cells. They're cells that are present in fat and the bone marrow. They are cells that can pretty much become any cell that the body wants it to become. So if you take the stem cells from a dog and inject it into his joint, you can pretty much, if there's cartilage damage, you can pretty much expect that these stem cells will form new cartilage in that area. It will form new bone in that area because we're encouraging it to differentiate into what is needed for healing in that area. Stem cells, though, have to be you need an anesthetic to get the stem cells, to get some fat from the dog. Then it is sent to this company, VetStem, and they are a big corporation, and they basically harvest it using special sterile conditions, and then it has to be stored in at a certain temperature, and then it's shipped out to the veterinarian, and then they inject the dogs with it. So it's a kind of it's a laborious process, and it is also cost prohibitive. A single treatment can cost as much as $2,000 to $2,500 because it's still new, and which is why some of us veterinarians and human doctors started using prolotherapy and platelet-rich plasma once again because it's not cost prohibitive, and I think that's another huge factor in the practice of medicine. We need to try and make things more affordable for people, so that because there are options, just so they can have the kind of health care that they need, that they require. Basically, health care should be, let me give this body what it needs to heal itself. It's not that I go in and change it. I just give the body what it wants, what it lacks, and then the body says, okay, I've got this now, I'll do my bit. So that's basically what healthcare is, and that's why I don't understand why it's so cost prohibitive.
Yeah, if we focused more on prevention rather than all of these Band-Aid approaches like pharmaceuticals, I think it would be a completely different world.
Exactly, yeah. And it is getting there. Even in the Comox Valley, I learned prolotherapy first from a human doctor. And I just spent time with her and watched her inject her patients, talk to her about it, and then she encouraged me to start using platelet-rich plasma as well. So there are people, and you yourself have had prolotherapy. There's lots and lots of people that are turning towards modalities like that, and they feel comfortable to. Even some of the veterinarians here want to talk to me about what I'm doing with PRP, because for them, their left brain accepts it because I say stem cells, and they understand that.
Well, and it's so exciting because essentially what you're doing is you're kickstarting the body to heal itself.
Exactly, and that is really what is so exciting. And the more I practice integrative medicine, the more I realize that I'm just giving the body what it lacks to heal itself. It's also very humbling. Then we don't have this the whole inflated ego thing, and that I am healing and I am doing this. No, I'm not. I'm just offering the body what it needs, and the body is healing itself.
That's and the body has such a magnificent innate intelligence if we kind of get out of the way and stop medicating it.
Exactly, yeah. And you used my favorite word, innate. The body has the innate capacity to heal, and that should be the basis of medicine.
Now can we talk a little bit more about certain things that I know are really pushed, especially in Western veterinary medicine, like vaccines. Now, I know that is something that many people are starting to explore in a more expansive way. They're like, I don't think that my dog needs to be vaccinated every single year. Now, we're minimalists with our own vaccines, and we were very grateful to be able to consult with you with Francis, our new little puppy. And so he has, what did we get him? It was just distemper, I think. I think it was whatever it was that we asked you about. But yes, that's it. That's it. Just the distemper, and I think there was something else that was...
The parvo and distemper.
Parvo and distemper, yeah, those two.
Yeah.
And we don't plan on vaccinating him ever again. And that was what we did. That's what the way we've been with all of our animals. We just get the puppy or kitten stuff, and that's it.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
they've all thrived into long, healthy lives. We're very fortunate with that. So I'm curious about your thoughts on vaccines.
I think that vaccines were a necessary evil a while ago, but I think that they have been overused, and I mean, I think that people have been exploited as far as vaccines are concerned, and I'm not afraid to say so because I mean, dogs and cats are vaccinated every year. People are encouraged to vaccinate them, and that led to so many autoimmune diseases. I have seen so many dogs, like for no reason at all, they start having seizures at the age of 1 or 2, and then they have to live the rest of their life seizuring. And then I've seen dogs that, their immune systems are so tampered with that they start destroying their own platelets, they start destroying their own red cells, and then they need blood transfusions periodically. And, sometimes by the age of 6, they're dead because their liver can't take it anymore. I I've also seen I've actually seen dogs die of parvo. I've seen dogs get distemper and have to be put down. But like I said, I mean it's like polio, right? We don't need it anymore. We vaccinated, we eradicated. That was a necessary evil. And it's the same thing. I mean, they should have their puppy shots to protect them from parvo and distemper. And after that, they don't need to be vaccinated year after year after year. I mean, and now we have the luxury of measuring the antibodies in their blood. They're called vaccine titers, and we have those tests available to us. And we can always check the titer level, check the level of antibodies. If it's sufficient, then you don't have to vaccinate your dog. And even if it's not sufficient, I mean, it depends on what kind of exposure your dog has. And parvovirus is rarely affects a dog, an older dog. Parvovirus is more a disease of younger dogs, anywhere between the ages of 1 to 2, sometimes up to 5 years old. So why are we vaccinating a 9-year-old dog against
Mm-hmm.
parvovirus year after year after year? I mean, and again, the body is intelligent. Cells have memory. You inject once, the body is going to remember. So when it's challenged by that virus later on in life, it say, "Oh yeah, I know how to deal with this," and boom, there come the antibodies out, right?
Mm-hmm. So essentially, what the vaccines are doing is it's suppressing the body's own innate intelligence.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what they're doing. Yeah.
Now, what about? I'm just thinking of a few of the common things that keep coming up, like deworming treatments and flea treatments. I know that that's really promoted quite heavily, especially at this time of year, throughout probably North America. Summer is flea season, and I know out here ticks are very common. Um, as a matter of fact, we've had a little bit of a tick plague with one of our dogs. Deb took one of our dogs out on a very rugged hike, and she keeps finding ticks on her now. She found a tick on herself too, which is kind of gross. But I'm curious what to do about fleas and ticks and worms without all of those really, really harsh chemicals.
Yeah, and that is something, honestly, Deb, that I'm struggling with because where do we tackle this at what level, right? Because, I mean, look at the wild. Animals do not, I mean, they're not flea infested, they're not tick infested. How come
Mm.
they are so immune to ticks in the wild? So, what is it that we are doing with our dogs and cats? Yes, we ourselves have mutated and our pets have mutated with us. Genetically, we're all evolving all the time, we're mutating all the time. That's true. But also in terms of the environment, in terms of chemicals, in terms of diet, what have we done to ourselves and our dogs, right? So when I see flea infestations and tick infestations, I try to deal with them holistically. I try to tell people for flea infestations to use lime juice or lemon juice in water, and and just spray it on their dogs and stuff like that. And of course you can use garlic in their diet, and that actually is supposed to repel ticks. And the Germans have used that for decades now. But in spite of it all, some dogs do need flea treatment, and I find that sometimes you have to resort to advantage or revolution, and I dislike that intensely. The other day, somebody opened a little vial of Advantage, which is a flea medication, and a drop fell on my computer, and guess what? I can't get it off. It corroded the material. It corroded my
Oh,
computer. And if it's doing that to my computer, what is it doing to my dog or cat, right? That was an eye opener for me. I looked at it. I mean, we already know the toxic effects of these things. I looked at it and I went, whoa, I have to find something. So I guess it starts with the diet again. It starts with the diet. It starts with trying to be as chemical free as possible in every single way, keeping on with natural remedies like garlic in diet and diatomaceous earth for internal parasites. I mean, there are options out there. There are herbs out there. There are bitter vegetables out there, that'll counteract internal parasites. There is stuff out there. It just needs to be. It needs to come out more, and the pharmaceutical, industry need to stop suppressing information that's out there, because they're producing their chemicals and marketing it. Yeah.
well, you brought up some really interesting points, but the most important, profound thing that you said is, why is it that animals in the wild aren't infested with fleas and ticks and our animals are? Like, that is a really, really important question that inspires a lot of critical thought. What is it that we're not doing right? What is it that we've done that has removed our animals so far from their natural state that they have these infestations? Like, that's a very powerful question. Very powerful
Yeah.
question. Thank you for bringing that up, because I think that gets us all thinking. But this is a great place to segue into diet now, because you mentioned that diet is so important. Now, we're actually really fortunate. We have a house with 3 dogs and 7 cats, and we rarely have fleas. So we know that we're doing something right. The only time we ever have issues is if we go into a wild place that's overgrown and there happens to be ticks around. And I know that there's a lot of ticks here in the Sunshine Coast. I think there are on the island too. I seem to remember when I was living there that there's a lot on the island.
Yeah, there are ticks on the island because of the deer population here. Yeah.
Yeah. They're nasty buggers. I don't like ticks. They gross me out.
I know.
I'm really all for live and let live until there's a tick embedded in one of the animals. And
Yeah,
just throw that out the window.
I wonder sometimes what the Dalai Lama would say about ticks.
Or Gandhi. Yeah, if he was here. So what can you tell us about diet?
Diet is a very, very interesting topic, and if you talk to Marlene, I listen spellbound when Marlene talks. In fact, we're going around the island doing seminars, she and I. I talk about Prolotherapy and Platelet-Rich Plasma, and she talks about raw food. But every time I listen to her, it's like I'm hearing it all over again. It's just amazing. Honestly, I've learned about diet from Marlene, because I have been vegan for 18 years and I know very little about feeding dogs and cats raw meat and stuff like that. So a lot of it is knowledge that I've gained from her and through reading of late. I think it's very, very important to keep the diet as natural as possible, as you are doing, Deb. I mean, even for yourself and for your pets. It's really important because that's where it all starts. I find that 90% of my skin cases get cured if I just change the diet. If I think they're feeding their dogs processed food, I just say, you know what, why don't you try raw food? Or if it grosses you out, why don't you try slightly cooked food? And I give them all the supplements to make sure that they're, it's a well-rounded diet, nutrition plan, and they do really well. My skin cases get cured. I don't need to do anything more. I don't need to prescribe herbs. I just say, okay, let's change the diet. Let's see where we are at. And they call me, and they don't have to come back. And it's the same with cancer. The first thing we do is we detox the body, and then we change the diet. And we always say raw diet because it contains the essence, fresh, raw, nothing like it. And raw diet may not be for everybody. For example, I'm vegan and I can't be on a vegan raw diet. My body does not digest it. So I need my food to be warmed and cooked. And like that, again, it's not one size fits all. So some dogs may require slightly cooked food. Some dogs may require raw food. It's a matter of, seeing what suits your dog or cat. But definitely, raw diet is the best. There's nothing because all our canine and feline diets are so highly processed. Even though they're saying it's grain free, even though they're saying it's natural, we don't know what goes into it. There's so much on the ingredients that you read. Chicken fat, okay, what is the source of that chicken fat? Chicken meal, what is the source of that chicken meal? Which part of it is it? Is it the intestine? Is it the pancreas? Is it the muscle? What is it? Or is it the brain? What are you calling chicken meal, right? So a lot of stuff is unexplained, and for me, honestly, when I look at anything that I eat or feed my pet, if I see more than 5 ingredients, it freaks me out.
That's powerful for all of us. Doesn't matter what species we are. Yeah, if there's more than 5 ingredients on any package. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Personally, I feel like some of the worst diets out there are those prescription veterinary diets too. I mean, some of the first ingredients are byproducts. Like, what is a byproduct?
Exactly.
I don't want to know. Or I do want to know so that I don't feed it to my animals. Yeah. Wow. Okay. I just have a couple more questions for you, Radica. I'm so grateful for all your time here. But I'm curious now. So you've brought up the skin issues and you brought up cancer and a few other things. But what are the most common issues that you generally see in your practice?
The most common issues are definitely skin issues. We see a lot of chronic diseases, Deb. The cases that come to us have been ongoing for anywhere from 4 to 9 years, and people come to us as the last resort. By the time they come to us, they've spent all their money on specialists. They've spent all their money on diagnostic testing and gotten nowhere, and then they come here. So we see a lot of chronic diseases that includes autoimmune diseases. We see skin diseases and a lot of cancer. These are our main conditions. These are the main conditions that we see. And when I mention diagnostic testing, I'm not against it. I totally believe that I need to know what is happening at some level. I do not just have a dog walk into the clinic and prescribe herbs for the skin or autoimmune disease. I do diagnostic testing. I refer people for x-rays. I do skin biopsies. I need to know what is going on in the body so I can deal with it holistically. So when people come to me, they say, "Oh, we came to you because you're holistic and you're asking us to do diagnostics." And I say, I am an integrative practitioner. I do need answers. I cannot treat blindly because then that's not medicine, and that it's just as important as palpation, as important as taking the time to touch every part of the dog or cat and examine them. Diagnostic testing is equally important because it tells me what is happening at the level of the blood, what's happening at the level of the organs, what's happening in the bone.
So what I've noticed about, the times that I've been with you is that it's this beautiful balance between diagnostics and intuition. And that's something that I feel is really missing in a lot of today's practices too, is that it's all diagnostic. It's like the practitioners do not trust their guts. And I think that's really sad.
I agree. It has to be, yes, I totally agree. It has to be a balance and yes, definitely intuition. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's really...
And that's where palpation comes in, Deb, because when you touch your patient, there is something in that touch. The fingers have memory. The fingers transmit something. That's why touch is so important. And today's world, you go to see your family doctor, he or she, they sit behind their desk and they write on a piece of paper. They don't touch you. They don't do a full physical exam. And it's very important because touch is actually leads to intuition. I feel sometimes I examine my patient and I feel I'm totally puzzled. I don't know what's wrong. I've gone back home and I'm sleeping. I wake up at 4 in the morning and literally I know what is wrong just because I've touched.
That is really powerful. And it's so interesting that it comes at 4 o'clock in the morning, the ambrosia hours. You know about the ambrosia hours,
Can
I guess.
you tell I'm sleep deprived?
Don't burn out. Well, how do you, okay, so now I'm curious, how does practicing, the way that you're practicing right now, how does it compare to what you had in Toronto?
Doesn't compare at all.
It must be night and day.
Yeah, it's like night and day. I felt like I was probably giving only 20% before, and now I feel like I'm giving 90% of myself. And I'm only holding back on that 10% because I feel there is more out there. There is more out there, and I need to know it. I need to learn it. So, but yeah, it is night and day. It's totally different. The one thing that I do have to be careful about is burnout, and I have to balance it. I have to know when to stop. I have to know when to be emotionally balanced and, how much to be emotionally involved with a patient or with a client. Because a lot of exchange of very intense emotions between the client and the veterinarian. And I think that when sitting in the exam room with the dog and the owner, very often I feel that the dog is playing a huge role and is basically there to heal us.
Mm-hmm.
And I walk into the room thinking I'm seeing this patient and I'm going to contribute to this patient's healing. But I usually also walk away knowing that this dog has healed me and the client in some way. There is something very mystical about that process.
And it's interesting because Marlene spoke about that as well. And as you're speaking about it, I'm getting goosebumps. So on a soul level, it's being confirmed, and it's beautiful. Now I've been very fortunate that I've had the opportunity to be one of your clients now on a couple of occasions, and I feel so grateful for how invested you are in this work. Like, it's obvious that you're fulfilling a calling. And there's something really mystical and powerful about being in the presence of someone who's fulfilling a calling rather than someone who's just trying to pay the bills. And how great that you can pay the bills with your calling. I mean, that's a beautiful combination. But it's really when we were speaking earlier, you said that you're hungry for solutions and you refuse to take no for an answer. So your passion is obvious verbally, but it's also it's palpable. I can feel it with you as well. I feel it. And how do you maintain that balance so that you don't burn out? I mean, that's one of the things I feel like that's something that sometimes I have to be very mindful of as well, because I love my work so much that it doesn't feel like work, but I can do it 24/7 and then realize that, oops, I haven't been outside as much as I'd like to be outside, and I miss that. So what is, do you have internal cues that prompt you when it's time for you to just kind of slow down and reconnect and recharge with yourself?
Yeah, I just try to be aware. Sometimes it doesn't happen, and that's when my husband steps in.
It's great to have a partner for that, eh?
Yeah, but I try to listen to my body and to my mind, because I know that I'm no good to my patients if I burn out. And I definitely don't want to ever come into work or walk into the exam room feeling tired or even grumpy because I'm physically or mentally exhausted, because then my patient can sense it. And then I'm not healing. I'm not doing any good to myself or to my patient. It's a very fine balance, and I'm learning. Also, many of us are in today's world. When we're very intense, we're also very type A personalities. And it's very important to balance that out and say, okay, it's all right. I'll achieve so much for today, and the rest can wait for tomorrow while my body takes a break. Yeah, and it's really tough. I haven't yet mastered the art.
I wish I could say that I have, but yeah, it's an ongoing practice. It's totally.
It is, isn't it?
I have just one more question, Radica. I'm really curious if you have just one message, one really powerful message, or maybe if there's two or three, whatever. But if just like something really important that you can offer to people and their animal companions. You've got the platform now. What would you say to them?
I would say one of the most important things about your pet's health is that you need to believe that they will heal. That's, for me, that's the most important. I say that to every client. When you come here, believe that they will heal, and they will. And healing doesn't necessarily have to mean that they're going to live forever, and the particular condition that they're suffering from is going away. Healing is on many levels.
Absolutely. That's very powerful. When we were there in October, and in our hearts, we already knew that Jessie was making her transition. There was something very, very, very necessary that we needed from you and Marlene when we were there. And that was just the beautiful wisdom that you both shared about her transition and her love and that mystical thing that you were talking about, the healing. And it really, it was healing. It was healing for her, and it was healing for us, because it made room for acceptance of what was coming.
Yeah, and I remember that day only too well. I mean, it was a very special moment in that room with Jessie and the four of us. Yes,
it was profound. Yeah.
Radica,
thank you so much for your heart, for your soul, for saying yes to your calling, for the path that you're on, for your hunger, for your passion, and for being willing to share yourself and your knowledge with listeners and with me. I am so grateful to have you in my life. I am so grateful to have you in my circle of compassion. And I'm also really grateful that I have a platform where I can share you with everybody else. So thank you.
Deb, thank you so much. Thank you for, being who you are and doing this and spreading the word. And we need more people like you. And I just feel very comfortable, very safe with you. And I'm so glad that I'm getting to know you. And I just wish you lived closer.
That's Dr. Radica Raj, integrative veterinarian, healer, and compassionate lover of life. Thank you for listening. And remember, live with passion, live with purpose, change the world.